The air over Normandy in late June 1944 is a physical weight. It is thick, wet and oppressive, smelling of damp earth, pulverized stone, and the sickly sweet perfume of apple blossoms, mingling with diesel fumes and death. This is the Bocage, the hedgerow country of northern France. It is a landscape that is suffocating the Allied advance. For the crew of Lucky Lady, an M4A1 Sherman tank with the 2nd Armored Division, the world has shrunk to this narrow, sunken lane. The sky is a strip of indifferent grey, framed on both sides by 15-foot-high earthen walls, impenetrable mounds of earth and granite, webbed with roots and topped with ancient dense hedges. It is beautiful, and it is a fortress. Sergeant Elias Thorne, the tank commander, stands in the open cupola, his binoculars a permanent extension of his face. His skin is slick with sweat under his helmet. Below him, in the humid metallic confines of the hull, his crew waits. The air inside is a cocktail of oil, gunpowder residue, and stale fear. Corporal Gup Gallo, the driver, rests his hands on the levers, his knuckles white. He stares through his narrow vision slit at the mud-caked rear of the tank ahead of them. They are parked in a silent, nervous column. The only sound is the distant, rhythmic thump of artillery, so constant it has become a kind of silence, and the buzzing of flies. Thorne scans the top of the hedge. He sees nothing, no movement, no glint of steel. That's what worries him. He has been in this lane for 2 hours. He knows the doctrine, keep moving, speed is their armor. But here, there is no speed. There is only this green tunnel. He looks at the lane itself, a morass of mud. Then he looks at the towering hay, the hedgerow. The road is a death trap. The hedge is a wall. He feels a cold knot in his stomach. This place feels wrong. The maps they were given in England showed roads and fields. They did not show this. They did not show the walls. The radio crackles, a garbled order to advance. Thorne slaps the top of the turret. "Gallo, move us out, slow, 10-yard spacing." Gallo engages the gear, and the 30-ton Sherman lurches forward, its V8 Continental engine a low, anxious growl. The tank claws at the mud. Thorne grips the .50 caliber machine gun, his eyes scanning the left wall, then the right. The lane is barely wider than the tank, the branches of the overgrown hedges scraping against the steel hull. It sounds like fingernails on a coffin. "I see nothing, Sarge," Shaw, the gunner, reports from inside, his voice tinny over the intercom. His periscope offers only a narrow slit of the world. "Just green. Wait." Before he can finish, a sound rips the air. Not a boom, but a sharp, supersonic crack-thump, simultaneous. It is the sound of an 8-centimeter shell traveling faster than sound. The tank in front of Lucky Lady, call sign Anvil, disappears in a flash of orange and black. A perfect circular hole has appeared in its turret. A beat of absolute silence hangs in the air. Then, the secondary explosion. The hatch blows 50 feet into the air, and a jet of white-hot fire erupts from the cupola. "Reverse!" Thorne screams, dropping into the turret, slamming the hatch. "Gallo! Reverse! Reverse! Now!" But it is too late. The crack thump sounds again, and this time it is their own hull that screams. The Sherman is thrown sideways, a violent, deafening impact that fills the compartment with spalling steel fragments and white smoke. The tank is hit. They are alive, but they are trapped. The shell came from the hedge, but they never saw a muzzle flash. They never saw the gun. They are fighting a ghost. What they don't know, what the entire Allied army is just learning, is that this terrain has rendered their machines and their doctrine completely obsolete. The strategic problem is the Bocage itself. Allied planners at Schaff, working from high-altitude reconnaissance photos, catalogued the landscape as hedgerow country, visually similar to the gentle fields of southern England. They assumed the M4 Sherman, with its superior speed, could easily maneuver and punch through. They were disastrously wrong. The Bocage is not a collection of fields. It is a 700-square-kilometre labyrinth of pre-medieval fortifications. The hedges are haze, massive ancient earthen walls, some 10 to 15 feet high and just as thick, built on stone and granite foundations, held together by the dense interlocking roots of trees centuries old. An after-action report from the 29th Infantry Division, dated July 1st, 1944, states it with chilling clarity: "We are not fighting in fields. We are fighting in a fortress. Each field is a room, each sunken lane a corridor, and each hedgerow is a wall. The enemy is using this terrain with masterful efficiency. Our tanks cannot penetrate the haze, and they cannot depress their guns to fire into the lanes. We are losing men and machines for every 50 yards of advance." Indeed, the American tactical doctrine is based on speed and flanking maneuvers. Here, there are no flanks. There is only frontal assault down narrow lanes pre-sighted by German guns. The technological mismatch is horrifying. The M4 Sherman, weighing 30 tons with a top road speed of 24 mph, is a marvel of American industry. Its 75mm M3 gun is a good all-purpose weapon. But it is facing the Panzerkampfwagen 660 Tiger. The Tiger weighs 54 tons. Its 8-centimeter KBDK-36 gun, derived from the legendary anti-aircraft gun, can kill a Sherman from 2 meters away, far beyond the Sherman's own effective range. The Tiger's 100mm frontal armor is, for all practical purposes, invulnerable to the Sherman's 75mm shell. In the Bocage, the Tiger's primary weakness, its slow speed and poor mechanical reliability, is irrelevant. The Germans simply park their heavy tanks at the end of a lane or at the corner of a field, using the haze as a natural, impenetrable bunker, and wait. The Sherman, forced to advance into its sights, becomes a coffin. The data from the field reports translates into a brutal human cost. The tankers of the 2nd, 3rd and 4th Armoured Divisions are discovering their M4 Sherman has a catastrophic design flaw. It runs on a gasoline engine, and its main gun ammunition is stored in vertical sponsons on the sides of the hull with minimal protection. A penetrating hit from an 88mm shell, even one that doesn't kill the crew instantly, almost invariably ignites the fuel, or the 75mm rounds. The tank brews up in seconds. The crews know this. A grim joke makes the rounds. They call their own tank the Ronson, after the popular cigarette lighter's advertising slogan, "Lights up the first time, every time." British crews using the same tank call it the Tommy Cooker. The psychological terror is immense. Morale in the armoured divisions is cratering. They are losing tanks by the dozen every day to an enemy they cannot see and cannot kill. A diary entry from a private in the 3rd Armoured found near St. Lo. "We lost 4 tanks today. Just gone. Bill's tank took a hit. We saw the flash. Nobody got out. The fire was so hot it melted the road wheels. We can't go over the hedges. We tried. The belly armor is too thin. A Panzerfaust got 'em from a ditch. We can't go through the gaps. The 88s are zeroed in. We are trapped in these green coffins." The problem seems absolute. The engineers of the 297th Engineer Combat Battalion try using explosives to breach the haze, but the process is too slow, and the engineers are cut down by machine gun fire. They try tank dozers, M4s with bulldozer blades, but they are too few, too slow, and become priority targets. The breakout from Normandy has stalled. The Allied beachhead is becoming a vast, open-air prison, and the Germans are the wardens. High Command is desperate. A memo from General Omar Bradley's First Army headquarters is blunt. We must find a way through the hedgerows, or we will bleed to death in them. The experts agreed. The Bocage could not be defeated by armor. It couldn't be done. He is not a high-command strategist. He is not a polished West Point engineer working for the Bureau of Ordnance. He is Sergeant Curtis Grubb Cullen III. He is 29 years old, hailing from New York. Before the war, he was a factory worker in Indiana, a man who understood machinery with his hands, not with a slide rule. He is a non-commissioned officer in the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, attached to the 2nd Armored Division. His buddies describe him as quiet, intense, a man who doesn't complain about a problem but stares at it until it makes sense. He is a tinkerer, a classic American garage shop inventor, now wearing an olive-drab uniform. Cullen has watched his friends die. He has seen the Ronsons burn. He has felt the gut-wrenching frustration of his M4 Sherman, a machine built for speed and power, rendered impotent by a wall of dirt and roots. He's not driven by the grand strategy of Operation Cobra. He is driven by the immediate, intimate necessity of saving the lives of the men in his platoon. His job as a cavalryman is to find a path, to move. And for weeks, he has been stuck. He is sitting on the turret of his own tank, Mustang, near the shattered ruins of St. Lo. He's watching a tank dozer try to clear a path. The dozer works, slowly, pushing tons of earth, but it's a massive, lumbering target. It draws fire instantly. Cullen watches the way the earth moves, the way the blade digs in. He looks at the high. The problem isn't the trees on top. It's not the hedge. It's the 10-foot thick earthen mound it all grows on. The tank dozer tries to push it. The standard tanks try to climb it, exposing their thin belly armor. Both are failing. The eureka moment is not a flash of genius. It is a moment of pure, practical logic. He's talking with another soldier, Corporal William Boody, also from the 102nd. Cullen gestures with a ration spoon. We're trying to push it or go over it. We're fighting the dirt. He stops. He thinks about a plow. What if we don't push it? What if we cut it? He remembers the beaches, Omaha, Utah. He remembers the massive, brutalist steel structures the Germans had planted in the sand to rip the bottoms out of Allied landing craft. Czech hedgehogs, they called them. Thousands of tons of high-grade German steel, now just scrap, being piled up by the beach-clearing engineer battalions. He finds his maintenance officer, Lieutenant Charles M. Waskow. He's nervous, a sergeant proposing a crazy idea to an officer. He sketches it in the mud with a stick. Sir, look, we take the steel girders from those German beach obstacles. We weld them to the front of the tank. Right here on the final drive housing, we make teeth like a plow. We don't go over the hedge, we go through it. The engine has the torque. We just need to give it a blade. Waskow stares at the drawing, then at Cullen. The skepticism is palpable. Sergeant, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You want to weld 1,000 pounds of scrap metal to the front differential of a 30-ton tank? You'll shear the bolts. You'll throw a track. You'll burn out the transmission. You'll just get the tank stuck inside the hedge, and you'll get your whole crew killed. Cullen doesn't back down. Sir, with respect, what we're doing now is already getting crews killed. I know this machine. It can take the strain if the teeth are right. Waskow, himself frustrated with the daily equipment losses, looks at the hedge, then back at Cullen's drawing. He sighs. All right, Cullen. You find the scrap. We'll find a welder. But if you break this tank, Bradley himself will have your hide. The operation is clandestine. The factory is a bombed-out French barn near the village of Marigny, designated as a forward maintenance depot for the 102nd Cavalry. The air is thick with the metallic tang of ozone from welding torches and the acrid smell of burning paint. Kulin, Budi, and a small hand-picked team from the maintenance platoon work through the night, their faces illuminated by the harsh, flickering white light of the arc welder. They have liberated several massive I-beams from a pile of German beach obstacles scavenged from Utah Beach. This is heavy, brutal steel, designed by Wehrmacht engineers to halt a naval invasion. Now, it will be used to defeat them. An acetylene torch shrieks, cutting through the night and the I-beams, throwing a cascade of white-hot sparks against the stone walls of the barn. The noise is a risk. A German artillery spotter could easily key in on the sound. They work with a hurried, desperate focus. They are fashioning 4 massive, tusk-like prongs. Lieutenant Waskow is there, overseeing the work, translating Cullen's vision into a problem of engineering and adhesion. The prototype is crude, ugly. The welds are thick, piled on for strength. They are mounting this monstrous plough, which Cullen calls the Rhino, directly to the tank's front differential housing and bracing it against the lower glacis plate. They work for hours. Every so often, a dispatch rider roars up on a motorcycle, bringing fresh, grim reports from the front just a few miles away. The 29th Infantry Division is taking catastrophic losses in the fight for St. Lo, measuring progress in bloody yards. The pressure to find any solution is immense, as the sky turns from black to a bruised pre-dawn purple. They finish. The modified Sherman Mustang sits in the courtyard. It looks like a prehistoric beast, a steel boar with tusks designed to gut the earth. The crew is exhausted, covered in grease and soot, but they gather around their creation. It is an act of pure battlefield improvisation, built of necessity, anger, and enemy scrap. The test is unceremonious, conducted just after dawn. The audience is Sergeant Kulin, Lieutenant Waskow, and a few nervous mechanics. The obstacle is a 12-foot-high Normandy hay, one that has stood for 500 years, separating 2 small pastures. Cullen is in the driver's seat. His heart is pounding. Waskow stands on the road. All right, Cullen, button up, and for God's sake, don't break my tank. The hatch slams shut. Inside, the Sherman is already an oven. Cullen can see only a narrow rectangle of green through his vision slit. He takes a breath, grips the levers. Here we go. He guns the Continental engine. The tank lurches, its tracks biting the earth. He picks up speed. 5, 10. He aims directly at the center of the green wall. The first attempt. The tank hits the mound with a deafening crunch. The entire 30-ton vehicle shudders to a halt, the engine screaming in protest. The tracks spin uselessly, digging trenches in the mud. Cullen reverses, his heart sinking. Waskow is already running forward. "The welds!" he yells. "The welds on the right side snapped!" The tusk is bent, the design a failure. But Cullen is already out of the hatch. "It's the angle," he says, grabbing a wrench. "It's hitting, not cutting. We need to brace it from the top plate, and we need to sharpen the points." They spend 2 more hours working frantically, re-welding, adding 2 more struts for reinforcement. The second test. Kulin is grimly determined. He backs the tank up further, giving himself more room. He slams the throttle, 10 meef, 15 meef. The tank, a 30-ton steel battering ram, hits the hedge. This time, there is no crunch. There is a deep, tearing, groaning sound. The sharpened tusks bite into the earthen mound, digging deep. The engine roars, not in protest, but in raw, unadulterated power. The ancient roots of the hedge, some as thick as a man's leg, snap like dry twigs. The Sherman, which hours before was completely stymied, rips a 12-foot-wide hole straight through the obstacle. Kulin bursts through into the next field, sunlight flooding his compartment, his tank covered in leaves and fresh earth. He stops, his hands shaking. Waskow stumbles through the gash in the hedge, looking back at the clean, perfect breach. He is breathless, his face split by a grin of pure disbelief. "Holy!" Waskow shouts, laughing. "Kulin, you did it! You magnificent bastard, you did it!" If stories of battlefield innovation like this fascinate you, stay with us. The next chapter of how this simple idea spread like wildfire might surprise you even more. The scene shifts from the muddy field to a damp, sprawling command tent. This is the forward headquarters of General Omar Bradley, commander of the U.S. First Army. The air is tense, maps covering every flat surface. Bradley is in a meeting with his senior staff, including General Leland Hobbs of the 30th Infantry Division and General Lightning Joe Collins of the 7th Corps. They are in the final planning stages of Operation Cobra, the massive offensive designed to shatter the German line and break out of Normandy. The entire plan hinges on overcoming the Bocage. Sergeant Kulin and Lieutenant Waskow are brought in. They are covered in mud, grease, and sweat, standing stiffly at attention before the assembled generals. An aide-de-camp announces them. Bradley, a reserved, pragmatic man known as the GI's general, looks up from his map, his eyes tired. "I'm told you two have something for me. Make it fast." Cullen is terrified. He is a sergeant, speaking to the commander of an entire army, but he knows his subject. He clears his throat. "Sir, it's a way through the hedges. We've welded steel tusks from the German beach obstacles onto the front of a Sherman. It plows right through them." A colonel from the Ordnance Department scoffs audibly. "General, with respect, we've reviewed numerous proposals for tank dozers. They are too slow, too vulnerable, and place unacceptable strain on the transmission. Unvetted field modifications are a recipe for catastrophic equipment failure." Bradley's eyes remain fixed on Kulin. He ignores the colonel. "You've tested this, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir. This morning. Twice. The first time the welds broke. The second time, sir, it went through like it wasn't even there." General Hobbs, whose 30th Division has been stalled for weeks, leans forward. "General Bradley, my men are being crucified out there. If this sergeant has a chance of a solution, I want to see it. Now." Bradley nods, his decision made. "Get me a jeep. Sergeant Cullen, you're taking me for a ride." The confrontation is settled not in a meeting, but in the field. Bradley and his staff are driven to Cullen's Mustang. They stand, arms crossed, as Cullen gets in the driver's seat. He lines up with a fresh hedgerow. He guns the engine and hits the wall at 15 meter. The tank doesn't stop. It rips through the 10-foot-thick mound, throwing dirt and roots, and emerges in the next field. Bradley watches, unmoving, as Cullen easily breaches a second and then a third hay. The general turns, his face grim, but now lit with a fierce, sudden hope. He turns to his ordnance chief. "Stop whatever it is you are doing. I want this device on every tank in the First Army." The ordnance colonel sputters, "But General, the blueprints, the procurement protocols, the steel requisitions." Bradley cuts him off, his voice cold. "I don't care if you have to cut up every single German obstacle on every beach in Normandy. Get me those welders. Get me that steel. Operation Cobra starts in 1 week. Get it done." July 25th, 1944. H-hour, Operation Cobra. The day begins with the sound of the sky tearing apart. Over 500 Allied heavy and medium bombers fly over a narrow 6-mile corridor near Saint-Lô, unleashing a carpet of high explosives. The ground heaves, smokes, and burns. The German Lehr Panzer Division, dug in and waiting, is stunned, shattered. Then the whistles from 1,000 NCOs. "Go, go, go!" The rumble begins, but it is not the sound of tanks funneling down the roads. It's the sound of hundreds of M4 Shermans, now officially designated Assault Tank M4, Rhino, advancing on a broad front. Leading the 2nd and 3rd Armoured Divisions, they hit the hedgerows. The German defenders, what's left of them, emerge from their foxholes. Their 88mm guns and heavy Tigers are sighted on the gaps and lanes, just as they have been for weeks. They are waiting for the ambush. They are waiting in the wrong place. Suddenly, a Sherman bursts through the hedgerow 50 yards to their flank, then another and another. The green walls that were their fortress are disintegrating. A German Panzer Grenadiers after-action report captures the sheer terror. "It was impossible. We were in our holes, the Pa-43s covering the lane. And the tanks. They came through the trees. Not over, through. They were on us before we could traverse the guns. The earth itself was attacking us." The psychological shock is as devastating as the carpet bombing. The Rhino tanks, with infantry following close behind, bypass the kill zones, smash into the German command posts, overrun the artillery parks, and shatter the defensive line. The Sherman's speed, once negated by the terrain, is now the decisive weapon. They are no longer fighting for fields, they are advancing by miles. In 1 day, Operation Cobra achieves what 7 weeks of brutal attrition could not. The stalemate is broken. The Kulin device, a stupid idea from a sergeant built from enemy scrap, has checkmated the Bocage and unlocked the door to France. The immediate consequence is the complete and total success of Operation Cobra. The German 7th Army, its line shattered, begins a full-scale retreat. The U.S. First Army smashes through the gap. Days later, General George S. Patton's newly activated Third Army pours through that same gap, and the race across France begins. The Normandy campaign, a bloody stalemate, transforms into a war of motion. The invention, known variously as the Kulin hedgerow cutter, the Rhino, or simply the Tusks, is hailed as a war-winning innovation. The Ordnance Corps, now fully committed, organizes a massive field production effort. Welding teams are pulled from every unit, working 24 hours a day in mobile depots. They standardize the design, creating a factory model using the endless supply of steel from the German beach obstacles. By August, over 500 Shermans and Stuart light tanks are equipped with the device. It is a secret weapon born of desperation that was designed, prototyped, and mass-produced on the battlefield itself in less than 2 weeks. Sergeant Curtis G. Cullen III is awarded the Legion of Merit for his invention. He's quietly sent back to the United States, his name celebrated for a time on war bond tours as a symbol of American ingenuity and GI resourcefulness. But he is not a general nor a celebrity. He is a mechanic who solved a problem. After the war, he returns to civilian life, running a garage in Evansville, Indiana. He seeks no fame and no fortune from his idea. He is the quintessential humble hero, the man who saw an impassable wall and instead of accepting it, simply built a door. His legacy is a profound testament to the power of bottom-up innovation, that sometimes the most complex strategic problems are solved not by genius in a war room, but by common sense in a motor pool. The story of the Rhino is not, in the end, a story about tanks. It is a timeless lesson in adaptation, a perfect metaphor for asymmetric thinking. We see this same principle echoed throughout history. We see it in disaster response teams, where urban search and rescue specialists modify concrete saws and jacks to breach collapsed structures. We see it in the engineers at NASA when the Apollo 13 crew, facing certain death, had to build a carbon dioxide filter from cardboard, plastic bags, and duct tape. The Cullen device is a simple, brutal reminder. When the rules of the environment negate your primary strength, you do not abandon your strength. You change the environment. The German commanders, with their superior Tiger tanks and their mastery of static defense, understood the Bocage perfectly. They believed the terrain was fixed, an unchangeable absolute that guaranteed their victory. They could not conceive that a single American sergeant with a welding torch and a pile of their own scrap could simply delete their fortress. The hedgerows of Normandy, those ancient man-made walls, still stand today. They are silent witnesses to the moment when a 30-ton tank learned how to plow, and a 1,000-year-old defense was defeated by a 29-year-old stubborn, practical idea. The tankers who burned in their Ronsons were victims of an impossible problem. The tankers who broke through to Paris survived because one of their own refused to accept that problem as final. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?